when I first started channeling, I was doing automatic writing, and it was coming to a point where I was hearing the words well in advance of what I was writing, and the guide said, "It's time to put down the pen and paper." And finally, once I did that, that's when the Pleiadian Collective came through. But the Pleiadian Collective is a little different in that they work with tone and sound, which is why when I channel them, their dialect is different than my own. It's really elongated vowels where they can modulate the frequency.
Welcome to the Awaken Magazine podcast, where we feature inspiring leaders who are helping our world awaken to love. I'm your host, David Trotter, and today I want to share with you an amazing conversation with Wendy Kennedy. She's a spiritual guide who channels the Dimensional Pleiadian Collective. And in this conversation, Wendy shares with us how she experienced an awakening to mindfulness, consciousness, spirituality, how channeling came into her life, actually beginning through automatic writing, and how the P's, as she calls them, ask her to put down the pen and began to speak on their behalf. It's a very fascinating conversation where she differentiates between light language and galactic light codes. She actually shares a written light code with us. I think you'll find that very fascinating. And then, of course, she takes time to drop in and channel wisdom that you will not want to miss, including light language that was powerful and healing. Now, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the Awaken Magazine podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Spotify. Click subscribe, leave a rating or a review, click like. It's just an easy way for you to help us spread the word about these amazing conversations that we are having with conscious leaders, healers, and coaches. All right, let's dive into this conversation and channeling session with Wendy Kennedy. Wendy, it's great to be with you today. Thank you so much for taking time to connect with us.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. I'm very curious about your own journey of awakening to consciousness, mindfulness, spirituality. Did you grow up in a home that had some sort of faith tradition or spirituality, or did that unfold for you later in life?
Not really. I mean, I think for my parents, my father was raised very Catholic. My mother was Protestant. And at the time, for them to get married was a big deal.
Yeah.
So it seems kind of crazy now, but back then it just was a really big deal. So in terms of having a core religion in the household, it didn't really happen. So most of that unfolded for me as I got older. I got into meditation and yoga, and it kind of unfolded from there. So I didn't have a lot in terms of programming from my childhood to kind of unwrap.
Yeah. How were you introduced to those other modalities that were kind of around the mindfulness theme?
Actually, through school. I went to the University of Kansas and I studied theater and film. And in the performance classes, we were studying things like meditation and yoga, Alexander technique, things that really got us in tune with our bodies. And so it just kind of grew from there because, at that time it was, we're talking about the late 80s. So it was certainly not mainstream. It was something that was more on the fringes. And so I really kind of had to seek it out. And after school, I went to Chicago, and there was a pretty big metaphysical community at the time. And I found some yoga classes and meditation classes, and I was doing work on myself before the channeling started.
Hmm. What was your career path like at that point in time in terms of kind of how you were making a living?
Well, I was trying to do the creative aspect, doing, trying to audition and then at the same time waiting tables. So doing, the starving artist thing. But it just kind of unfolded as I was beginning my process with that. And, it was great at the beginning. They would give me feedback of what things to think about, things I could do. And at one point, I just decided that this was really what I wanted to do. And the acting just kind of prepared me for that, to look at what motivates us. Why do we do the things that we do? And, taking a deep dive into kind of the psyche, which is a big part of the work that I do with the guides. It's looking at our programming.
Hmm. How were you first introduced to the ninth dimensional Palladian Collective? What was that like?
Well, they actually didn't come in for a year, almost a year. I think it was probably somewhere between 9 months and a year. When I first started channeling, I was doing automatic writing.
Hmm.
And it was coming to a point where I was hearing the words well in advance of what I was writing. And
Hmm.
the guide said, it's time to put down the pen and paper. And finally, once I did that, that's when the Pleiadian Collective came through because I actually work with a lot of different guides, a lot of different galactic beings.
Hmm.
But the Pleiadian Collective is a little different in that they work with tone and sound, which is why when I channel them, their dialect is different than my own. It's really elongated vowels where they can modulate the frequency. So
Hmm.
when you hear them, in addition to getting the information, it's as if you're getting a healing. And they were waiting for me to channel verbally before they came in.
Hmm. How were you first introduced to channeling itself through automatic writing?
So like I said, I was in Chicago and I was living in this old apartment building that I started having visions in, and I didn't know what the visions were. It was very trippy. Some days I felt like I could reach out and touch the vision. Other days it was just a flash. And as I was starting to research on that, because I thought maybe it was something that was associated with the building itself,
Right.
but as I started doing more research, I discovered it was a past life I was seeing, and it was somebody who lived in the building down the hall from me who I was seeing in the flash. But as I was kind of going through this process, I came across channeling and I didn't know what it was. I didn't know anybody who did it. I just knew it was something that I was supposed to be doing. And I can remember saying to friends, I know this sounds insane, but I'm supposed to do this. And I had a lot of support around me at the time, and my friends were very supportive. They said, "Well, if you manage to do it, I'll be your guinea pig. If you want me to ask questions, I've got questions for you." So I was very lucky that way.
Wow. Okay. So then you started learning how to do automatic writing. The words are now coming ahead of the pen. You put down the pen. And now what begins to unfold for you?
Yeah. The guide started teaching me about the process of manifestation, and I started channeling more and more for my friends. And I made 2 friends early on, probably, right after the Pleiadian Collective came in, and the 3 of us worked together because they were both beginning their channeling journey. And like most 20 somethings, instead of going out and drinking, we'd get together every night and we'd channel. So it was an amazing place for me to practice. And like you'd have one person channeling, one person asking the question. So the odd man out would get to kind of check in. And I was already hearing the answers before the other person was channeling them. So it was a great way for me to get confirmation on the accuracy of what I was getting. And, it just kind of went from there. I started going and doing smaller events. A lot of them were at Masonic lodges. And, we're talking about the late 90s, early 2000s. And, we didn't really use the internet in that way. So everything was in person. And I went to small expos and it kind of built from there.
Hmm. For people who aren't familiar, who are the Pleiadians and what is their mission in working through you?
So they are a collective of about 2,500 beings of light. They don't have physical form. And instead of incarnating to a planetary body the way that we do, they actually align with the blueprint of a star. And in their case, it's Alcyon or Alcyone in the Pleiades star system. And for those who really don't know where the Pleiades is, it's in the constellation of Taurus. So if you can find Orion's belt and you look up just probably about 5 degrees, you'll see kind of a hazy patch of stars. It's easier to see in the winter in North America or the northern hemisphere. And that's the Pleiades, the seven sisters. There are about 14 stars that we can see with the naked eye, but there are seven that are the predominant ones. And they tell me it's an open cluster of about 750 stars. So it's a vast system, and there are beings who incarnate into multiple dimensions. A lot of people, when they think of the Pleiadians, they'll think of the blonde hair, blue eyed Nordics. But the guides that I work with, they don't have form. Occasionally, I'll see them as blue light, or people who see energy will tell me that, "Oh, I see them as blue. Is that what you see?" Yep, that's what they look like. So, they've got a good sense of humor. And originally, when we started, it was very difficult for people to kind of wrap their brain around connecting to 2,500 beings all at once. So they said, just
Mhm.
call us Mrs. P. And my Hawaiian friends will call them Auntie P. So, it came to a point where they finally said, okay, now you've developed enough where you can think about connecting with all of us. So you can call us the
Mhm.
Ps.
Hmm. My goodness.
And so their mission, if you will,
Yeah.
is to really help us to stand in our light, to remember our divine essence so that we can take stewardship of this planet. Because they say eventually, through our developmental process, we will become stewards for the entire universe. But we got a long way to go. This is just the baby steps here, and they're just trying to teach us and help us along the way.
Mhm. For people who listen to this and go, "Whoa, wait, she's talking to people who are, in rather crass language, aliens. She's talking to aliens, right?" How do you deal with, and maybe you don't have to deal with anymore, people that are maybe don't understand or are confused or maybe push back? Maybe how has that even changed from when you began to many years now?
It's definitely changed, I think, because there's so many more people who are just channeling, period.
Yeah.
It was very rare when I started. There were a few people who were out there, had some books and things like that, but it really was not mainstream, and I think it's certainly become more so. People are more aware of that. The fascinating thing to me is that when I would talk about it, and I think probably more so then than now, people would say, "I've had experiences like that, but I was afraid to tell anybody."
Yes,
And I
yes.
think now you still will experience that, but I think people are talking about things a lot more, whether it's seeing lights in the sky, seeing ships, having, ET experiences themselves, or they've seen people who've crossed over or hear voices. I think it's far more common, and in part because our overall frequency is higher, and that makes it much easier for us to make that connection.
Mhm. I don't even know how to ask this question, so I'm kind of might fumble a little bit as it comes out. But how do you see what you do connected or disconnected from spirituality? Like, is it spirituality? Is it not? Like, how do you see that?
I mean, I just think of spirituality as connecting to your divine essence,
Okay.
and we are divine, and so when I do this work, I have to connect to my divine essence in order to bring it through.
Hmm.
So to me, it is spiritual work. It's not, I think a lot of times spirituality and religion kind of get mistaken. One is more of a structure, the other is our connection.
Yeah.
So I do think that what I do is a form of spirituality.
Hmm. So, talk to me about the way that you receive messages practically. I've taken a number of channeling classes with Sean Randall, who I don't know if you have heard of her, but
Mhm.
she is just an amazing woman here in Los Angeles. And so I have a bit of understanding through her as I've been kind of beginning my own channeling experience. But I want to hear from you. Like, how do you practically connect with them? What's going on step by step? What are you feeling inside? What does it feel like before, during, and after? I seriously, I'm very interested. Take me through it.
So the process now is very abbreviated. It doesn't take
Yeah.
me long to make the connection. So for me, that's always once I made it, it's always been an easy thing for me to do. So
Hmm.
the first step is grounding. You have to be grounded and connected to the earth, because if you don't complete your energetic circuit, it's very difficult to run full energy. And it also means that you aren't able to connect fully with your discernment.
Hmm.
So that's the first thing you have to do. And then put yourself in your heart center. So think of something that makes you smile. That's the easiest way to get there. If you're heart centered, you're present. If you're present, you're heart centered. They're one and the same. And the guides describe it this way. They say we have two operating systems that we utilize here in 3D. We have the operating system of the ego mind, which is where all the programs of lack, limitation, and separation are. And then we have the operating system of the heart. And that allows us to access multidimensional information. So, in order to access higher dimensions, you have to be in that heart centered space. And in
Mm.
that space, you aren't running any of those fear programs. So, what we'll do is go back and forth as we go throughout the day. When we're in flow, we're in that heart center. And then when things stop, it's because we've gone back up to the ego mind and we're aligning with a program of lack, limitation, and separation. So to channel, you want to ground, you want to heart center yourself, and then you want to ask a question. And the more specific your questions are, the more specific information your guides can give you because they have to look at everything and kind of figure out, how will the information that I give them impact them. And when you're asking for it, then they know that you're ready for it and they can give you more. So my guides at least will say, be really specific with your questions and even thinking about what you want to know. That process of self-discovery is really important. So they want to get you thinking and get you involved in that way instead of just giving you all of this information. And then listening, and that can be a little tricky. And I think it's probably one of the greatest misconceptions with channeling that it's some huge, big, booming voice that's really clear and you can't miss it. It's far more subtle than that. At least it is for me.
Mhm.
But because I have spent so much time working with them and hearing them, I recognize that subtle energy now. So with the guides, what they might say is that it's a nice day, but I know that it's 70 degrees, the birds are chirping, the grass is green, and on and on. There's all this detail that comes with what it is coming through. And I know that if it's just my imagination actually feels really flat in comparison. So the
Mhm.
more you work with this, the more you begin to recognize the subtle energy and that it's different. And, it's different for everybody. The frequency is coming in the same way, but dependent on your genetic propensity, you may feel that it's easier to take that information and see it visually, or maybe you're going to hear it. You might taste it, you might smell it. It's different for everybody, but then we learn to work with that. And the nature of the information may also change how we receive it. It's a bit like being right or left-handed. One way's easier than another. And again, it may be that your ancestors received information this way and it was just easier. And so you can tap into that knowledge and wisdom, or it may be that you've done it in another lifetime in that way. And so you have the record of how that's done in your energetic field. But you can do it the other ways. And, if they're trying to teach you about sacred geometry, to just describe it to you might be very difficult. So you might be somebody who hears a lot, but when they're teaching you this, you might start seeing some things as well.
Mhm. Uh, the role of plant medicine. I'm curious about that with you. That's something that, um, without me even recognizing or realizing, opened up a massive pipe for me connecting. And yet, some channels I know don't feel comfortable with that. Like how does that play out for you?
For me, it's never been anything that I wanted to touch because I think one, my body is so sensitive to everything. I
Yeah.
mean, even with um, allopathic medicine, I have to be really careful because I have a lot of allergic reactions to things. And I also had a very strong reaction to it. I think it's not for everybody. I think if you don't have a practice already in place and you
Mhm.
start dabbling in that, the guides will describe it like taking a crowbar to a door. Sometimes you damage the door and it's hard to get it shut again. But for me, I also have memories of Atlantis and being there. And there was kind of a split between those who were starting to work with with plants in such a way and those who didn't. And I saw some of the negative things that happened as a result of that as we kind of came through the dissension process. And, I vowed that I wouldn't do that again. So I didn't understand that for a very, very long time. And now it's like, okay, well, now that makes sense why I've never done drugs. I've never done anything like that. I've always had an aversion to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for sharing. That's good. Um, Talk to me about uh, light language, galactic light codes, how those play into what you do through channeling.
Yeah. So when I first started channeling, when I was doing the automatic writing, I first worked with my angelic guides, and then Arcturan beings came in and they were giving me all of these symbols. And I'm like, what is this? This is interesting. This is
You're writing
familiar.
it down. You're literally writing it
Yes.
down.
Yes. And they said, this is a star language. It's light language. And I was like, okay. So I would do that. I would channel that and bring it in. And then the Pleiadians came along and that kind of went to the side. And around 2014, 2015, the guides came and they said, it's time to start working with this again. And I hadn't spoken it. I had only drawn the symbols.
Okay.
I was like, okay. And so when I started with that, they were like, okay, well, we want to bring through the light language. So just start speaking. And so I started bringing through the language of light. And when I do it, it actually sounds a lot different than some of the other language of light versions you might hear. There is something different about it in that there are many galactic beings who will be braiding their energy together. That's in part why it's so fast.
Mm,
I've had people who see energy. They've tell me that the entire room will light up with
mm.
light and they can see the codes coming down.
Wow.
So it's there's a lot happening, but the language of light is a source language and it's comprised of light, sound, sacred geometry, and information. So, like I was kind of describing before, I'll have a knowing or the words will come through, but there's all this other information. And that's what happens with the language of light. And it speaks directly to you, the divine being of light, having the physical experience. It bypasses the traditional language centers of the brain. And what it helps you to do is to attune your own energetic field. It's like somebody playing a note on the piano. If you don't have perfect pitch and you're being asked to sing a note, it's very difficult. But if somebody plays that note, you say, "Oh, that. Okay, I can do that." And it's helping us to find specific frequencies that we can then attune ourselves to.
And when you are speaking that light language, are you saying that it's helping you attune or helping the other people around that are listening to it attune or both?
All the above. Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
And it
Okay.
doesn't matter whether you're working with the language of light the way it's spoken or the codes which I write out and then recreate on the computer. So they I do automatic writing and they give that to me. It's like listening to a book on tape or an MP3 or actually reading a book. The information is the same. It's just a different way to receive it.
Okay. I want to put up on the screen, and we'll do this in editing later, a code that you have provided to us. And there's a string of code at the top. There's a more prominent code in the middle, and then a string of code at the bottom. And then it says, envisioning reality. In this moment, I open to envision a new reality for myself and the world. Tell us about what we're looking at.
So this is the code for envisioning reality, and it's helping us to open up and to imagine things in a new way because where we're headed, it's not going to look like anything that we've experienced before. And so the guides really spend a lot of time getting us to focus on frequency instead of form because if we keep going back and trying to associate what we want to build with something from the old version, we're just going to get more of that. So this code is really meant to help you to think outside of the box and to dream bigger than we've been dreaming before.
And how, what are the codes above and below?
It's the same thing. So that what you see there in the middle is just a
Replicated.
yes.
Okay. And so how would we work with this code? Is it looking at it? Is it meditating on it? Is it just allowing it to come into our field? How would we work with it?
Whatever works for you. So when I personally work with them, I will look at it and then I'll close my eyes and really try to tune into the energy.
Mhm.
You can just gaze at the code if you want and just kind of take it in. Typically, when you work with a code, the guides will recommend that you work with it 3 times a day for 3 days in a row, because that gives you a good amount of time to start to become familiar with that subtle energy so that you can start to see it as it shows up in your reality. It's reflected back to you, and for you to really kind of tune into it. Some people like to work with it more or less. It's really a personal preference. And then some people like to draw it, they like to recreate it, whether that's physically writing it out or
Mhm.
just writing it in the air. It's different for everybody, and everybody's experience with it will be different every time they connect with it.
Mhm.
The language of light, the way that it's spoken, and even the code, the guides describe it as being a living transmission. And what they mean by that is it's a real time transmission. So the information that's being transmitted today in this moment is specific to this moment. If you connect with it 3 days from now, there may be different information that you receive, because for them every moment is real time. Every moment is the now moment. There's no past, there's no fu- no future. It's just all now. So they can tailor it and give you what you need in this specific now moment.
Mhm. For people who are feeling drawn to connecting with higher dimensional beings and maybe they're feeling, called to channel in some way, what would you encourage them to do in terms of increasing that level of sensitivity? Because I'm hearing a couple things. One, I'm hearing, okay, grounded, heart-centered, asking clear question, very specific, listening. And then I love the hearing that discerning is like, oh, my imagination just kind of feels flat. I love that. That was so helpful when you said that, because I'm like, oh, yeah, yeah, no, I feel that in my own experience. It's like, no, 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 that's not it. It's like, this is alive over here. Um, that level of sensitivity, how would you encourage us to develop that?
So I set an intention that that's what you want, that you want to connect with your guides. And I would say pay attention to what shows up in your reality, because oftentimes what we need to be in a vibrational space that is high enough to connect with our guides is to release our judgments, let go of the limiting beliefs we're holding on to. And if we're paying attention to what's showing up in our lives, then we can do that. I think a lot of times people, when they think about the process of manifestation, whatever they want to create for themselves, get very frustrated because they're saying, well, I'm asking for this thing and it's not showing up. Where is it? Well, what is showing up? Because whatever's showing up is the most important thing for you to deal with so that you can put yourself in alignment with what you want. And that's no different with channeling. So as we deal with our stuff, and by deal with it, I mean let go of judgment that something is good, bad, right, or wrong. It's valid. It has a valid purpose for existing. It doesn't mean that we want to lend our energy to it necessarily, but it's valid. And when we accept it as being part of the whole, then we can release our connection to it, and we can be curious and go explore the opposite frequency, the more positive end of the spectrum if we want. Because if you're trying to go to the positive end to avoid the negative, you're just going to get more of the negative, because
Mhm.
the universe wants to bring you back in wholeness and you are trying to be separate from that which you're judging. So it's important to understand that in terms of connecting and channeling so that you can get your frequency high enough.
Mhm. One of the interesting things that when I started exploring channeling, that Sean Randall was sharing with us, I always thought channeling, okay, there's this big message, I've got to give this message to the world. Like that seems like what people think channeling is. And although I wasn't looking to do that, it was more like, I guess, is that what this is? Like, here's this message. And one of the things that was interesting that she said was, for her, channeling, the very essence of channeling is to experience unconditional love
Mhm.
of the higher dimensional beings that you are connecting with. Like for her, that's the essence. That's the point. And at some point, they might want to share a message through you to others. And I'm hearing you, it seems like it's really the messages seem to be, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, I want you to correct me here, is it's for our benefit in some way. It's for our growth, our transformation. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. So a lot of their messages are really about me understanding how things are created in this world, how I'm creating, how I'm co creating with the universe,
Hmm.
so that I can live a life that's filled with more joy, more happiness, more unconditional love. So
Hmm.
I can embody those frequencies.
Hmm.
And by understanding that, and being able to work with the tools that they've given me, it helps me to come back to my true sense of being. So, as I'm going through the process of channeling itself, it's forcing me to connect with that aspect of me, which,
Yeah.
in some ways I think is why we're so drawn to do that. We want to connect with our own inner divine spark, and channeling is one of the ways for you to do that.
Yeah.
Um, One of the messages that was very clear from them early on, they wanted me to be empowered. They wanted me to use my own discernment. They didn't want me to give my power away to anybody else. Just because another being has supposedly a higher perspective, it doesn't mean it's the best one. It may not be the best thing
Ah,
for me. So they wanted me to take that information, just as I would get an opinion from a friend, and kind of weigh that out to see if it resonated with me or not, and for me to make that final decision and take action from there. So my guides, they don't tell me, go do this, go do that, because I would probably shut down. That's also my personality. I don't like being told what to do, but they will say things like, we might recommend that you go and we might suggest you examine this or that. But they always want me to check in and see how it resonates with me.
that is really empowering. Yeah. Well, I know that we had talked about you having the opportunity to channel the collective. And so we would be honored if you would share that with us. Yeah.
Yes, I'd love to. So, like I said, the guides are working with tone and sound. So, in addition to getting the information, it's as if you're getting a healing today. So, you want to make sure you drink plenty of water over the next several days just to help move the energy through the body. Yes, great. Yeah, because, when we do this work, we actually burn through a lot of minerals. So, making sure we're getting water in will help us with all of that as well. All right, we'll see
Wonderful.
where we go.
Okay.
Yes, hello, dears. This is the Ninth Dimensional Pleiadian Collective, and it is a pleasure and an honor to have the opportunity to connect with you. So, we're thrilled to be here, and we've been enjoying the conversation thus far. And, Wendy was connecting with us earlier, and the message we wanted to kind of share with you off the top is really about you standing in your empowered state. And we feel that this is very, very important for you all right now because there is so much going on in the collective consciousness and so many stories that are being told that many of you are forgetting to choose how you want to feel first. You are just reacting to the stories. So when you stand in your true power, when you understand how the process of manifestation occurs, it is first you making a vibrational selection. All right. So you stand internally observing things, and you have the opportunity to select any frequency you want. And then you make that vibrational selection and you begin to pulse it out. And then you go back to more of a receptive state again, observing what is outside of you. Oh, that thing over there, that's the frequency I've been asking for. I'm interested in that. And then you take action to step out and greet it. That's how the process of manifestation occurs. It is first through the vibration of what is being projected from your energetic field. But because you're not aware of all the belief systems that you're holding on to, things that you set up early on in childhood, amplified by ancestral programming, past life programming. These are subconscious programs running, but the signal is still going out. It's not as strong as a consciously directed thought, but it's a weak signal, but it's a constant signal. And that's what gets projected out and reflected back. So, oftentimes, because you're not aware of the fear program that's running, what you'll see in the external world will reinforce the original energy that was there and being pulsed out. and you think you're responding to the external world. But really, it is you already running that energy and reinforcing it. So you've got to start first with the inside and decide the frequencies that you want. So at the beginning of your day, before you put your feet on the floor, choose a frequency. Maybe today you want to work with peace or harmony, balance, trust, compassion, safety, health, whatever it is, vitality. Choose a frequency. You can choose for the week no more than 3, we would suggest, because then you're missing the subtle energy as it starts to show up. But just choose one. And then as you go through your day, am I still in resonance with that? So as you're choosing one, imagine what it would feel like in your body. What would it feel like to feel peaceful? What would it feel like to feel balanced? You can say, I am this thing, or I wonder what it would feel like to be this thing. We generally recommend the imagination aspect of it because sometimes the I am statement will trigger the ego. So you might be able to hold that focus of I am this thing for 10 seconds, 15 seconds, and then the ego starts in, oh no, we're not that. Look at all the things that are going on that are not peaceful in our life. So as you're imagining it, it will put you in resonance with the frequency just as the I am statement will. And then as you go through your day, check in. Am I still in alignment with that? No, my boss triggered me over here. We had this conversation and I am not peaceful. So you take a breath. You give yourself permission to feel that unrest in the body. Allow that energy to continue its journey. Don't suppress it. Allow it to go. And then imagine once again, what would it feel like to be peaceful in my body? And do this repeatedly throughout the day. This is your practice. And as you continue to do this, you become aware of the subtle energy of peace. And when you're not in it, you begin to recognize it faster and you can come back to it easier. So, this is what we want you to do so that you start to decide the reality that you want to form for yourself, not react to what the powers that be are telling you is happening to the world. I am abundant. I am safe. I am connected. I am healthy. And as you start to hold those frequencies, the world around you will also start to reflect that. You will find more people who are in alignment with those things. All right? And this will help you to shape the world the way that you want it. Now, we could talk on about this for hours, but we know there are questions. So we're happy to see what questions you might have and how we may best be of service.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You were talking about manifesting and specifically choosing a frequency. And let's say that I'm okay, yes, I want peace, but I also want a business that is booming, or I want a certain house or a certain romantic partner. Help me understand how to move in that direction.
So, what qualities, what's the vibrational essence of that thing that you want? So, if you want um, a house, what quality does
Hmm.
the house have? Is it
Hmm.
light? Is it bright? Is it open? Is it airy? Is it traditional? Is it cozy? How do you feel when you walk in the door? Do you feel really grounded? Do you feel really energized and expansive? What is the vibrational essence of it? If it's a job, what do you want for the job? Do you want to connect with a lot of people, or are you someone who just wants a core group that you want to work with on a regular basis? Do you need something that's structured? Do you want something that's got a lot of flexibility to it? Do you want something that's more analytical? Do you want something that allows you to be really creative? All of you know deep down what you really want. Sometimes you don't take time to examine that. So if you can start with the vibrational essence of it
Hmm.
and feel what it would be like to experience those frequencies, then the universe can bring you form. And we want you to focus on frequency over form because where you're going, you're creating new systems, new experiences that will not look anything like you've had in the past. And if you keep going to the old box, you're going to get the old stuff. So, your part in the process of manifestation is to work with frequency. As you're co creating with the universe's portion of that is to create and generate the form. Then you have to, as you're working with the subtle energy, recognize the frequency that is imbued in the form. So think about it this way. You all want the frequency, but think of a gift, and that's the frequency. It's in a box and it's wrapped with a pretty bow. And in your mind, you have the idea that it's a pink box with a blue polka dot bow on it. And they're all coming on a conveyor belt, the gifts. Well, the gift can come wrapped in 50 different ways, but because you've got it in your mind's eye that it's got to be a specific way, you're going to miss it for the first 49. And finally, the 50th one, that's the one that you had in your mind. The universe wants to work in the most expeditious and economical way possible. So there may be other things that you want, and those are bonus gifts that were in the box. But because you had it in your mind that it had to come in a particular way, you didn't get the bonus. You have to wait for the bonus later. So if you can let go of the idea and the attachment to form, the universe can bring you things in ways that you could not possibly have dreamed up, even bigger and better. So you have to be flexible with the form. You can visualize something, but then let it go. And the way that many of you were taught to manifest 5, 10 years ago, that was still fine. Vibrationally, you were still working in the old system. That's not where you're headed. And so you've got to start working the way that you would work in fifth dimensional reality, which is working with frequency. Make sense?
Yes, yes. There are so many things that are happening in our world that can sometimes feel constraining in terms of the economy. How do I get that job? How do I grow that business when the economy around us is, struggling, or there are, political things that are happening? How do I navigate my own sense of empowerment with these external things that are coming my way?
Some of that is the story that you're buying into. You're being told this is the situation, and so you buy right on into it.
Mm-hmm.
In some ways, yes, you can see it as part of the reality. Prices have gone up. But you can also hold a reality that that's fine, that you can increase your energy and your ability to manifest, to have abundance, to match that. And again, this is about the frequencies that you hold. And we know it's very difficult for you all because you are so enmeshed in the things that you see in the external as being quote unquote real.
Mm-hmm.
You're buying into the story that created those things. That as you start to let go of the stories and say, well, I'm open to possibilities, I'm open to the potential that this can manifest, even though, yes, the story with the collective might be this, my personal story can be different. Every now moment is built upon an agreed upon set of circumstances by the collective that you say, this happened, World War I happened, World War II, that kind of thing. And then the personal story that you tell yourself. This happened to me when I was 5. This is happened to me when I was 15, 35. And the beliefs that you're holding of what is possible. That's what your now moment is built on. Yes, you may be on a now moment where the collective may be going through this transition, which may be a little chaotic. It may be a little challenging, but that doesn't have to be your personal reality. You can hold a different story. There are many who thrive when the economy declines. They believe that it's possible to expand, to have abundance in those moments. There are those who, yes, you could look at the job market and say, well, there aren't many jobs. Well, as you open up vibrationally to align with the potential of that happening, the universe says, all right, they're in alignment. Let's bring opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
And again, they may not look what you might expect them to be. You might not have thought, I have the skills to apply to this industry instead of that one over here. And you've been looking over here all the time. But if you focus on the frequency, the universe says, oh, look at this. You would really like this experience. And there's some other things that you wanted on your list. And it's over here in this job that you didn't even have on the radar. So you have to open up to those potentials.
Mm-hmm.
And, your job here, if you will, those who are listening, those who might say they are light workers, is to be the light in the midst of darkness. And so, what you will do is put yourself on a now moment that may be a little chaotic for the collective in order for you to be the way shower, for you to hold light, to remind others that there's another frequency, there's another way of being. All right.
Hmm.
So, it's not that you are damned to suffer because the collective is going through a hard time. You can choose something that is different in that moment for yourself, for your personal reality. You can have more light, you can have more joy. You can stand in peace in the midst of chaos. And that is ultimately what you are learning to do, is to hold another frequency. It is mastery over frequency selection. That is what Ascension is about.
Hmm. How would you describe what's happening right now on the planet, and how is that somehow connected to our own evolution or awakening as humanity?
We'd call it exciting. We know that many humans wouldn't necessarily call it that, but it's so exciting. And this is what the soul has come for. This is a special time on your planet. It's a nexus point where you're doing a lot of integration from past lives, even future lives, ancestral programming, a lot of belief systems. It's very rare that a soul gets to go through the possibility of integrating so much so quickly. It's very, very rare. What you might experience in a week may be something that you spent two lifetimes on. All right. There's just a tremendous amount of growth that's happening right now. And part of that has to do with the frequency that you're in. It has to do with the sector of space that you're moving through. The sector of space is filled with high photonic energy, light particles, and that helps to increase your resonance. Think about a track that has a start and finish line, except instead of staying on the same plane, you are actually elevating. And as you cross this plane of light, it's helping you to integrate everything you just learned through the cycle and helping you with fresh energy as you move into the new one. That's what's happening right now. And this is allowing you to go through a very rapid pace of integration. As you go up higher in frequency, your perception of time also accelerates. What does that mean? What does that look like in a very practical way? We told you that 20 years ago, and you'd say, Pease, what does that mean? Time's going to speed up. Well, now you can understand it because you are saturated with so much data in a day that 20 years ago, it would have taken you weeks to access that much data. Today, because there's so much more information, you can see patterns because the repetition of the pattern is much closer together. You can see things in an easier way. Where 20 years ago, you might have an experience and then maybe a couple months later have another experience and then a couple months after that. So it was a long time before you saw the repeat. Here, it's happening very, very, very quickly. You see patterns, you see repeated issues, things you're stuck on. And because you can see it, you can make the transition to the frequency that you want instead. Make
Hmm.
sense?
Hmm. Yes, yes. Um, Wendy has mentioned that you utilize light language in order to bring healing. If someone is struggling today, whether physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, is that something that you might be able to offer our listeners?
Yes. So even in our transmission, as we're having a conversation with you, we are sending those energies because we are helping remind you that you are whole and complete as you are.
Hmm.
You are a spark of the divine, and your divine state is one of health, well-being, connection, love. It is all that exists in the universe, not just the things that you might believe about yourself right now, that you are somehow disconnected, that you are unwell. Those are transient states, and you can align yourself with a different frequency, and the body will start to respond. If you're having physical difficulties, as you align more with your true divine light, the body will reorganize itself to be a reflection of that divine health and well-being. So we would be honored to be able to do a language of light activation for you that um, one will help you with connection, connecting with yourself, connecting with your own divine light, be that for the purposes of manifestation or healing and well-being, connecting with your guides, whatever it is that you want. So it's deepening that connection, but also with envisioning reality, because we want you to envision what you want for the future, as opposed to being told what you're going to get. All right. Here's what's coming down the pike. No, what do you want? Because as you start to focus on what you want and you take your energy away from the stories that are being pushed on you, you can very rapidly take back your power and create a very different reality. It does not take the majority of you to do that, because when you start to take back your power, and there are enough of you, a relatively small number, and you're broadcasting higher resonances, and it goes into the collective consciousness, the collective can pick it up very quickly, because they're seeking it at an unconscious level. They want to feel that sense of connection, and here you're broadcasting it, and they can feel it, and they will attune
Mhm.
to it. So it can catch like wildfire. So we want you to really think about what it is that you want, whether the collective decides to come along for the ride or not. You'll put yourself on a now moment where you will be of the greatest service and will have the greatest soul growth. That might mean in a peaceful now moment. That might mean in one that's slightly more chaotic. But you, regardless of which version is happening for the collective, can have peace and harmony and grace and ease and love and abundance and all those wonderful things. All right. So that's what we're focusing on for the activation. There's nothing that you need to know or do. Just relax, take a nice deep breath, and we'll see where we go.
Ishigoto ore mini bidi kada bidi kada patakata ida da ar bidi bidi kada patakata hisa ar bidi bidi kada patakati ida ar bidi bidi kada tata ar mini bidi kada pati inda ar bidi bidi kada patakati ita ta ar bidi bidi kada patakata hasa ar bidi bidi kada patakati hisa didi mwani ni wani mini joda da ar bidi bidi kada patakati ore ishana katare ima kara ore imana mini kore mini mishishi bidi bidi kada patakata hasa didi bidi bidi kada barajita ta ar bidi bidi kada patakati bidi apoto ere bidi kada patakata.
Take a nice deep breath.
Ondori mene bijudde imbra berjukota betekete berjukota andor mene bijudde or mene bijukota aingado ore mene bijukota bre biri bijukota beteketa ar biri bijuna ala ambakor or imene isa katana are imerkodore hisa hishon or isa sakor amene bezakra biri bijukota betekete bijukati ibre bijukota ar biri bijukota tit or biri bijukota bijukota di bijudde har biri bijukota betekete ida ar biri hasa arre berkata asakadai.
Take another nice deep breath. So, as Wendy was talking about before, we typically recommend that you work with it 3 times a day for 3 days in a row, just to kind of become aware of the subtle energy. And you can do one of 2 things. You can listen to the recording again, you can scrub back through the video, and there it is. Or you can imagine connecting with it in your energetic field, because it is recorded in your energetic field now. You can connect with this moment again, and both will put you in resonance with the frequency. Too often as humans, you think that the things that you can experience with your senses, that's what's real. You give it more credence, but in truth, both will put you in resonance with the frequency. All right?
Thank you. Thank you. One last question.
All right.
What is it that you love and appreciate about working with Wendy?
That we get to connect with all of you. It's quite special that beings get the opportunity to connect and share information with those who can't see into the higher realms. So we learn from you as well. We love your creativity. You are an exceptionally creative race. Other beings, other species are not quite this creative. And that is in part because you've been gifted with genetic material from thousands of worlds on your planet. Earth is a grand experiment. And along with that genetic material comes the emotional component. So you've got a wide range of emotions here. You've got a wide range of thought forms to play with. And so you're very creative about how you manifest specific frequencies, the way that you put them all together. So you teach us. You teach us about all different kinds of things. And we also learn about compassion from you, because that really, truly, as you go through this ascension process, is your gift to the universe. The level, the breadth of the bandwidth of compassion that you hold is unmatched, because you are living in a world that is so heavy and so light. Your extremes of duality are quite extreme. And all of you have experienced all of those frequencies, maybe not in an intensity that everybody else has, but you've been there. You've embodied it. You've done that. You all know what pain and suffering and loss and confusion, you know what it feels like. So when someone else is going through it, you're able to hold a level of compassion that even we cannot match, because we can hold compassion for you, but we haven't walked your path. We haven't embodied that frequency. And it's quite special. And there are species who will learn from you, species who have lost their emotional connection. That as you go through this ascension process, you are putting into the Akashic realm the records of all that is, was, and will be. You're putting the information of how to handle and work with emotions, how to hold compassion through it all. And they will learn and grow. And that's why there are so many beings who are here right now, who are present, observing what is going on this planet. That's why so many people are channeling. It's quite
Mhm.
special,
Mhm.
as are you.
Mm. What do you specifically love and appreciate about Wendy herself?
Her sense of humor and her
Mm.
willingness to work with us, and her heart.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today. We really appreciate it.
It's our pleasure. And all of you, feel free to connect with us directly. You don't need Wendy. Just ground, heart center, ask your question, and listen. And until we hear from you, we are around.
Mm.
Hello. So there are the peas.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Wendy. I appreciate your service, your offering to us. Thank you very much.
Well, thank
Um,
you.
I want to make sure that people learn about ways that they can connect with you and work with you. I know you have the Galactic Light Code monthly membership. Do you mind telling us about that and other ways that people could work with you?
Sure. So, with our membership, every month I sit down with the guides and they look at the energy of the group, and whatever the group needs, they will do a pre-recorded channeling for that. Usually it's short, and everything is bite-sized, because I wanted to make sure it was that way, because I know we don't have a lot of time oftentimes. And these programs are all great, but they require a lot of time. So they're bite-sized pieces. So we're working with the short channeling, and then they give me a galactic light code. We do a language of light activation, and then there are affirmations and meditations that are included with that. And then mid-month, you sit down with me and we kind of take a look at whatever's coming up for you by virtue of working with this code. And based on our conversation, then I pull from our library of codes. We've been doing this for 9 years now, so we've got a lot in the bank there. And I pull codes for you to work with, so you have access to everything for officially 60, but we give you 90 days to work with every code. So at any given time, you've got between 25 and 30 codes to work with.
Mm.
And like I said, that is our monthly membership. We've got that going on. And you can find more information on that over on our website at higherfrequencies.net. And then every month, we do a group session where I sit down and the guides come through, and they talk here at the beginning for a little bit, and then they take your questions. And there's more information on that as well over on our website.
And lots of courses that you have as well, and messages, just individual things that people can take advantage of, I believe, as well. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're just getting ready to launch a new one, but I think by the time this comes out, we'll already have started. But we have the process, which is all about the process of manifestation. I think either later this year or the beginning of next year, we'll be doing a revamping, and that's coming out. So there are a lot of things in the works here, but yes, there are lots of programs, lots of recordings there for you to listen to, and all of our past group sessions are there as well.
and lots of events that you attend both online and in person, doing things around the country. So people can find your event schedule, I believe, on your website as well. Is that correct?
Yes, the next event will be in Mount Shasta for the Lemurian Life Expo, and then I'm in West Virginia in November for the Channel Panel
Channel panel.
event. So, yep, so lots of
Yeah,
good stuff.
wonderful. All right. And your Instagram, people can follow you there as well.
On all the socials, it's higher frequencies, but it's HGR frequencies, FREQUENCIES.
Wonderful. Wendy, thank you so much for sharing your story, your wisdom, for channeling with us today. Really appreciate it. Thanks for all the great things you're doing in our world. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for all that you're doing and your podcasts and everything else that you've done. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Thanks for listening to the Awaken Magazine podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and our other conversations, would you mind taking a moment to leave a 5-star review and maybe even a comment on Spotify or Apple Podcasts? That's one of the ways that you can give back to the show and help us reach more people. And of course, feel free to share the episode with a friend. And if you're not already on our email list, we send out an inspiring email every Monday morning full of articles and interviews. Just head on over to awakenedmagazine.com and click subscribe and join for free. Our hope is that all the resources we share will help our world continue awakening to love.